Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to episode 67 of the Yellow Card Podcast, presented to you by the Couch Guy Sports Network. It's your host, Diego Galvis, and co-host Chris Jones. What is going on, Chris?
Oh, it feels a little bit different. New laptop and no headphones for me this week. So
Oh,
I
you're going
may
rogue. You're
I
going
know.
rogue on us.
I don't
Wow.
I don't know what's going on, but I don't know how I feel about it yet. So we'll see by the end of the episode.
I like the heel turn over here, going rogue, looking all uh little ragged as well. Like it. I
Wrong
like it.
wrong podcast.
Like it. If this was wrestling, which shout out to Suplex Biddies, they just had a huge guest on their podcast. Basically, think of it as like the Adam Schefter of the sports world with John Alba. So shout out to Suplex Biddies. It's a podcast in which Chris and I are also involved in, but we also have a very talented young man who's been working with us for quite a while. His name's Andrew Honeyman. So shout out to all three of them as well. Great episode. If you haven't tuned in, definitely check it out. Check out obviously all the podcasts on the Couch Guy Sports Network, which is also sponsored by our good friends over at Exogun and Shocked Energy. Well, without further ado, we got a lot going on this week in the world of the beautiful game, the Jogo Bonito. Got a lot going on in football, and I think we should just get started. What do we say, Chris?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
All right. So Real Madrid and Barcelona, we'll start off with them as they had a phenomenal match earlier this week for the Super Copa and or Copa del Rey, whatever you want to call it. And my goodness, what a match. A lot of back and forth between these two. And I gotta be honest with you, it kind of felt like El Clasico was back. Like not a lot of people knew that there was this clash happening because it's no longer Cristiano Ronaldo versus Lionel Messi in Spain. It's not it's no longer that kind of high ticketed game, but these two teams played really, really tough against one another. And gotta say, probably the best coaching job I've seen so far out of Xavi in his short career right now with Barcelona. Barcelona looked really well organized, very disciplined. They were attacking in full force. They really showed a high press attack and mid-level defending. So I don't know if you watched it, Chris, but just your thoughts on the game.
I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. It's been a hectic week for me,
Yeah.
but from what I've saw from the highlights and everything like that, it looked like both sides are starting to finally get the wheels moving, and that's good for a team like Barcelona, who desperately needs to. They're in the middle of the table right now in the La Liga, so to climb back up, they're going to need to start playing well against these good teams. But also, it means more to them because if they can't get into the top four of the La Liga by the end of the year, they have a chance to make the Champions League next year by winning the Europa League. So if this team is playing on all cylinders right now, it's going to be tough for the remaining teams in the Europa League to beat said Barcelona team. For Real Madrid, they've just been clicking on all cylinders as of late, anyways. So this is just more so of a re-uppins for them. So for them, they have some big matchups coming up soon as well. So we need to see more of this kind of energy from Real Madrid.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of funny that a lot of people nowadays kind of turn their heads away from El Clasico and from what it used to be. As I mentioned earlier, it's no longer the Cristiano Ronaldo versus Lionel Messi type of game. It's no longer the Zinedine Zidane and Luis Figo type of game versus Ronaldinho and Andres Iniesta. But my goodness, this game was upbeat, hectic, all sorts of dynamics going on. Vinicius Jr. started the game going in the 25th minute with a beauty of a goal, striking off of the left hash, and then shortly after, in the 41st minute, Luke De Jong, who looked really, really, really good. score in the 41st minute. That first half tied 1-1. Minute 72, Karim Benzema scores. Then Ansu Fati answers in the 83rd minute. This game hits over to overtime, and Valverde turns the game around 3-2 in the 98th minute. So, as I said, a lot of action, a lot of back and forth between these two teams. There's a second round coming up as well. I gotta say, this game really gave all the viewers that tuned in to watch it a lot of hope for the El Clasico to finally be back to what it used to be. And with the January transfer window being as busy as it is, which we'll get into a little later, I think these two teams have a lot to offer going forward, especially with how young both teams are right now. But moving on, any last minute thoughts, Chris?
I mean, when Fati scored the game tying goal in I believe it was the 82nd, 83rd?
Yeah, 83rd. Yep.
You started to feel more of Barcelona starting to pick it up. And that was the moment where we knew that this might be the moment where Barcelona could be back without Lionel Messi on the squad. Then obviously Valverde's goal was beautiful. That just changed the whole complexion of the game in extra time. But after that, I mean, I would say that's more of a morale win for Barcelona than anything. Like, don't get me wrong, hardware is cool and all, but the Spanish Super Cup is not something you're striving for right now. You're striving to be in the top four of the league, and you're striving to win the Europa League. Yep. So that's a morale win for them, as I've said earlier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And it's also just a matter of discipline too, because this team fell completely apart after the previous management. They had no identity, no culture, no discipline, no drive, nothing. So it seems like Xavi's doing his thing over there. It's gonna take some time for this team to turn around, but he's managed to do a lot within this short time already. So nothing but high remarks for Xavi as his job continues to show some positivity for Barcelona. Moving on, we do have some breaking news at the top of the hour, in which heading over to Serie A in Italy, the Italian side Genoa have sacked coach Andryi Schevchenko and replaced them with Davide Ballardini. Shevchenko has managed to only get 3 points out of 9 games so far. Genoa continue to struggle this whole entire season, and therefore they have made the decision to move on from Shevchenko, a legendary name in the game. It's been a really good coach, showing what he's capable of in the national team as well with Ukraine. So wishing nothing but the best, and a quick rebound for Andrei Shevchenko as his career as a coach and as a manager continues. And it's unfortunate, but the Italian league is also starting to be really competitive again. And unfortunately, there's only so much you can do until your team decides to start investing a little bit more. Any thoughts, Chris?
Well, for Genoa's perspective, I mean, you're 21 games into the season, you have 1 win. You're 1-9-11. Like that's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And for a coach like you said, Shevchenko, like that's not a good look on him. And it stinks because, we've seen what he's done with the Ukraine national team and how much talent they have on that team.
Mm-hmm.
But Genoa's they're only technically 5 points out right now. Like there's still so much. I think they play 38, so there's still 17 games left. Just got to start figuring out what works and get it going. I mean, I understand the league is competitive, so you're going to have to pick and choose your spots on when you win these matchups, but you also have to realize that you're going to need to win and then have other people help you out as well.
Yep.
In order to avoid relegation. But the Italian league in general it's a curious league right now because you have realistically 5 teams. I understand from 1 to 5, there's like an 11-point difference, but with all the postponements and all these teams that haven't really played much, There is some serious potential that we could see a very, very wild finish again from the Italian league in the top four.
I agree with that. And I mean, one of the major topics that Shevchenko had focused on from the beginning of the season, um, because Genoa wasn't all that active during the summer transfer window, which they wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
Shevchenko have mentioned that January transfer window needed to be something that they put a big drive on. And so far, the Italian side has been really, really quiet. And I wonder if, therefore, it just kind of send a message to Shevchenko, like, what do we care? And so maybe he just gave up. But it's unfortunate that he's been sacked. But wishing Genoa and Andryi Schevchenko big success as the season continues. Moving on, let's get on to the January transfer window, because this thing is starting to boil up fast and really, really, really interesting. Some teams are starting to look like they're building some super teams, and some players need to make decisions. Speaking of that, Erling Haaland has been pushed as of yesterday by German side Borussia Dortmund to quickly make a decision in terms of his future. Haaland has been rumored multiple times in the past to be headed out of Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund are at the point right now where they're like, this is your transfer window right now where you could go out basically as a free agent because your contract is almost coming to an end. We need you to decide rather fast. And with Haaland being a high-ticketed player, this gives an opportunity for Borussia Dortmund to finally make some money out of him and do whatever they need to do to build their team. Kind of like what Jadon Sancho went out with out of Dortmund. He was rumored quite often to be transferring over to Manchester United or to an English Premier League side, and he finally decided upon. So, in your opinion, Chris, what do you think Haaland truly lands? I have a couple of places that I could see him landing, but it all depends upon his decision-making skills at this point.
Well, I mean, Real Madrid was looking to get either him or Kylian Mbappe. And with the way that everything looks, it looks like Mbappe is going to head there after the summer. So that's a big factor right there because that already knocks them out of it. And they were big contenders. Now you get Chelsea, you're talking about. They have guys galore up front. I mean, you still have a guy like Romelu Lukaku on the books. So adding that second striker in Thomas Tuchel's formation doesn't necessarily fit the build right now. Then you look at other teams in the Premier League, and I don't think he goes to Serie A. So I think realistically, we could see, because I have a weird feeling that Ronaldo doesn't last long in Manchester United, that United will be the team that ends up getting him.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think for Cristiano Ronaldo, I think we'll see him for maybe at best an additional year, but I think his retirement is coming rather fast. We could see him retired and go back to Sporting Lisbon, where he started his career, and retire there. We've known that Cristiano Ronaldo is one of those guys that really cherishes where his career started, hence the return to Manchester United. So it wouldn't be surprising to me to see him go to Sporting Lisbon, which could bring the next generation as an Erling Haaland into United. So I agree with that. I think the only key factor for United is after Rangnick finishes his interim as a management personality, who is going to take over? And the rumor there is that there are three potential candidates. There's Mauricio Pochettino. There's Erik ten Hag, and then there's another dark horse candidate that has not yet been mentioned, but that Rangnick is really a big fan of. So with Rangnick having now a consultancy position within Manchester United, and Ed Woodward being completely out, we could see finally a Manchester United that will decide on what their identity is going to be like moving forward. So I agree with you there. I think the next team that could potentially really land Erling Haaland could actually be Manchester City, especially as Pep Guardiola could be headed out. They could be looking for a new potential attack. A couple of their players, their contracts are due as well at the end of the season. So this could lead onto an opportunity where Manchester City decides to just say, you know what, all we need is just Erling Haaland, and that's it for the summer transfer window. Let's lock it up. Let's move on, and let's continue on to our goals for next season. So those are the two teams that I have in mind. Wouldn't surprise me at all if maybe Barcelona decides to be competitive in the transfer window. They have mentioned that they're back. So, if Laporta is really a man that can put his money where his mouth is, wouldn't surprise me at all to see Erling Haaland in Barcelona. I think it would actually be a huge factor, a huge helping factor for Xavi's career within the team. So who knows? Those could be the top three locations where I can see him going. But speaking of moving pieces, how about Aston Villa? My goodness, they have been real busy in this transfer window. And I gotta say it, I'm starting to get a little terrified of how strong that team started to look under the Steve Gerrard management style. They've kicked into this high press defensive game as well. The Steve Gerrard only knows how to do. They've looked real good. And I mean, as a matter of fact, right now they have almost 3 transfers that they're about to complete. They've completed the transfer of Philippe Coutinho, who's coming into into Aston Villa after getting transferred from Barcelona. So congratulations, Steve Gerrard and Philippe Coutinho on that reunion. I think Philippe is going to deliver on his promises there. Then you have Lucas Digne from Everton. I think that move, if anything, is Lucas Digne trying to save his career, because Everton looks to be headed towards relegation at this point. They have not been able to turn things around, and gotta say it's troublesome times for Everton. And then the last rumored one is Robin Olsen, who used to also be a player for Everton, looking to potentially complete a move that will bring him out of Sheffield United to come straight to Aston Villa and make his return into the English Premier League. So what do you think? I mean, I'm fascinated, honestly. I really am. I'm not an Aston Villa fan, but I think what Steve Gerrard is doing right now with that organization is huge. So what are your thoughts there?
Realistically, I mean, they're in the lower part of the middle of the table. I think they're 14th currently. I think what this does is this sets them up for an interesting run in the Premier League. So I think these moves are great for not only this year, but for years to come. I think they get into like the top 8, maybe. Like, I think that's their ceiling right now with the way that everything's playing out. But I think the big thing is you get a guy like Lucas Digne who can help create from the left back position, which is something they desperately needed. They needed someone on the wing to be able to create. They weren't getting it from their current wing, so they got that. And how do you pronounce the dude's last name that they transferred to Everton? Basically, they kind of did a swap in a sense. Is it El Ghazi or is it Trickett?
I think it's El Ghazi.
Right?
Yeah,
it's one of those.
Yeah,
it's one of those. So that went back to Everton, in which that helps. Either way, both sides made out in that, because Everton gets another creative piece up front that they can use that they desperately needed, and Aston Villa bolsters their defense because they already got Philippe Coutinho. They didn't need a guy like that. They already have a surplus of it.
Yeah.
So, with guys like Danny Ings on that team, Ollie Watkins, like they have a good foundation going right now. They need to bounce on it. And when they bounce on it is when we see the most out of Aston Villa. We saw this last year with this team. I think we're going to start seeing it towards the second half stretch of the Premier League season.
And I mean, we could potentially see Philippe Coutinho start this week, as the next matchup that they have is actually coming up in about 2 hours, which is against Manchester United. We're recording now on Saturday, January 15th. It's about 10:40 a.m. our time. We could see Philippe Coutinho start against Manchester United as soon as today. So, but even with that, like Aston Villa and United just recently encountered themselves, and I gotta say that match was really, really something to watch from both sides. We watch a different style of football from Aston Villa that we haven't seen in quite a long time, and even though they were really, really well managed under Dean Smith, it's just every time that these two teams play, it's a really, really good matchup, regardless of who's managing. But I think the last time that we saw these two go head to head, that was really, really, really good piece of football that we saw from both sides. Redneck side was really well coached. Careless mistakes happening here and there. It is a United thing at this point. Aston Villa, on the other hand, good ball control, a lot of pass facilitating as well. Not a lot of long drives and all that stuff. Just a lot of really building the play and getting in front of the net. Overall, like I said, a really well composed piece of football from both sides. So I'm interested to see how Aston Villa does for the rest of the season. I think if all these pieces really do come to fruition and it can be a big factor for these guys, I would not be surprised if Aston Villa comes out of nowhere and finishes in the top 5 at this point. They have the potential for it. I think West Ham, on the other hand, if they don't have the transfers that they're looking to make, they could be the ones to flop out of the top 5.
Which I agree with, don't get me wrong, out of the 5 teams that are up there, but I think a team like Arsenal has a better chance of finishing in the top 5.
For sure.
I think West Ham, I don't think West Ham falls out of the top 6, though. That's the thing. I think Aston Villa can get into the top 10, but I think it's anywhere in the 8 to 10 range. I don't think they can get higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think, like we've said, I mean, there's so much good football happening right now in the English Premier League again for what's this now, the 5th consecutive season now that we've seen really good football from all sides. It's just, this is easier said than done, but this is really just the most competitive league right now in the whole entire world. And it's insane what we're seeing right now. It's really insane.
Unfortunately, I agree to disagree with you. It is very competitive, but it's competitive from 2 to 6, 2 to 7. Manchester City just has another hold on literally everybody yet again in this league. Like, we thought they would take a step back, even with the Jack Grealish signing, but they have not. And I don't think they've lost a match in the Premier League in well over a month, maybe close to 2.
Yeah, they have a winning streak going on right now. They're 22-8 and 22-18-2. Oh my goodness! Sorry. They're 18-2-2 with 56 points, 13 points clear on lead. Top of Chelsea, who is 12-7-3 at 43 points. But then you look from, like you said, you look from the 2nd place to the 7th. Even the 8th place, and it's extremely competitive. You got teams like Chelsea, Liverpool, West Ham, Arsenal, Tottenham, Manchester United, and Wolves. Wolves is just trailing behind United due to goal differential, but they have a game ahead of Manchester United. Tottenham is only 2 games behind everyone else. Well, actually, they're 4 games behind everyone else because everyone else should really have 22 games played at this point. But even Tottenham right now, they're 10-3-5. So if they win those 4
matches, they bump right
those
back
4
up.
matches, they jump right back up exactly to potentially 4th place. Arsenal is very close behind West Ham. West Ham is very close behind Liverpool. Liverpool is only 1 point away from Chelsea. So honestly, there's just a lot of great football happening in this English Premier League. Um, the other team that we really gotta watch out for is how Newcastle turns around, because they also have been really busy in this transfer window, and we could potentially see this team find themselves out of the relegation run and potentially get themselves to maybe 11th place at best, which would be a phenomenal season ending for a team that's looking to rebuild and stay away from relegation at this point, especially after being taken over by a new management. So
For
what thoughts do you
Tottenham,
have?
for Tottenham, they already have one of the games rescheduled, but the other three, they're even this upcoming weekend against Arsenal has been postponed, so they have to play Arsenal again. But they get Brighton and Burnley, so those are all winnable matchups for them. So they can easily jump right back up into the fold of things once those matches get scheduled as following. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how the Premier League shakes out. I think obviously we know the top three of City, Chelsea, and Liverpool are going to be there the entire year. It's just that fourth team, and then whoever gets fifth and sixth for the Europa League spot.
It's so true. It really is so true. One team that I'm kind of curious on as well, though, that could potentially surprise everybody as well. It's Leicester. They're 4 games behind as well. They're sitting in 10th place. They got 25 points. But who knows? They could go on a winning streak. They really could.
I think within the next couple of weeks we could see some pieces getting sold from Leicester and they regroup.
For sure. I mean, Yuri Tillman is one of the guys rumored to be leaving the club.
They could get so much capital for Yuri Tillman.
Absolutely.
Wilfred Ndidi, James Madison. They have plenty of guys that they can. The only one realistically that they will never probably get rid of is Jamie Vardy. Anybody else on that team is easily movable.
And I would almost argue with Jamie Vardy is up to his decision. If he wants to leave the team, then obviously it's a wild transfer window at that point when he makes a decision.
He's been one of the best He's been one of the best goal scorers in the Premier League since they won the Premier League title.
Absolutely.
Back when, which was a few years back now.
He's extremely faithful to his team. He bleeds and truly believes that legacy that Leicester City has built over the years. So unless he decides to say, I want out, I want to explore my horizons a little bit, that's when we can see him going out. But
yeah,
I think he has such a good grip in this team. Management loves him, ownership loves him, the fans adore him. He adores this club right back. And again, like I said, until he decides that he wants out, I don't see him going out anytime soon.
Thoughts on Brendan Rodgers potentially getting sacked after a lackluster season?
I don't think so. I think at this point, instead of being sacked, it gets down to a mutual agreement between the two. Maybe Rodgers wanted to go explore his horizons a little bit, see what he can do outside of Leicester City. I don't think he will get the firing or the sacking just yet, because that ownership team has really loved this guy for everything he's done with his team. And when you look at a team like Leicester City, how tight knit of a group they are, sacking somebody so essential to what has been Leicester City for the past 5, 6, 7 seasons, maybe. It's really, it really comes down to a decision of, okay, did he completely fail us? Did he turn his back on us? Things like that, which Rodgers hasn't done at all. Rodgers has tried really hard to make the season work, but I mean, like you mentioned, those top 5 teams right now in the Premier League, they were so busy during transfers that they were able to build really, really good power teams that nobody saw coming anytime soon until that chemistry really kicked in all cylinders. I mean, when you look at a team like Manchester United as well, right, who was extremely busy last season in the transfer window, you immediately thought that they were going to be a mega team, that they would probably end up again second place in the English Premier League, and that they would win the Champions League. But then, that chemistry hasn't really been there, and they kind of flopped. For Leicester City, on the other hand, they really weren't all that busy in the January transfer window or the summer transfer window. And they still have managed to keep themselves out of the relegation zone, keep themselves as, second tier of the table, within the top five of the second tier of the table, and managed to keep themselves relevant and competitive as well. I think overall, I think the biggest surprise here is Brighton, who has managed to keep themselves in ninth place, be extremely competitive, be extremely strong team that nobody saw coming. So for me to see Leicester City sack somebody like Brendan Rodgers, I think, like I said again, it comes down to more of a mutual agreement than anything else. It doesn't come down to, yeah, no, we're done with you, like we're firing you. I think if it comes down to that, I think it'll be a dark time for Leicester City, because that message will not be well received by anybody there.
No.
Neither the players, nor the organization, nor the fandom. None of that.
I agree with you on that. I think my big thing is the real difference in this Leicester City team this year is the fact that they struggle heavily on the road. That was one of their bread and butters last year, last couple of years, actually. And that's why they finished in the top six. They would go into opposing team stadiums and they would beat them. And they would beat them convincingly. They haven't done that this year. Yeah. King Power, it's a hard stadium to play at no matter what. So they have that going for them always. But if they can't win on the road, you're not going to do well in the Premier League.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I mean, like I said, it's just such another level of competitiveness in this league that some of the teams that we were used to seeing in the top five are really struggling more and more and more these days than anything. So, again, like I said, I don't personally foresee somebody like Brendan Rodgers getting sacked. It is the Premier League. We've seen strange things happen.
Yeah, that's my mindset behind it.
So I think, let's say metaphorically that Brendan Rodgers does get the sacking. Where do we see him going next? Do we think he stays in the English Premier League, or do we see him going somewhere outside of the Premier League?
I think he stays in the Premier League. I just don't know where. It would just be curious to see where he would end up. I think more so it would have to be one of the teams in the lower tier of the table right now that are looking to get a big rebuild. Maybe Eddie Howe's not the guy for Newcastle, and they want a guy who's won before, and that would be Brendan Rodgers in a sense. Like there's so many different avenues that he could go to, but I think endlessly he'll have options. He could be the national team manager for so long. You know what I mean? Like there's a plethora of options for him.
I think if he was to stay in the English Premier League, I think we could see Rafa Benitez getting sacked at the end of the season because it was not successful. And I think we could see him heading over to Everton, where he doesn't have any bad ties to it or anything like that. It would just be another ex-Liverpool coach coming to the opposite side of the Merseyside. Mm-hmm. But Rodgers is highly regarded for it all across the league. Every single team has high regards for the guy, high praises. So we could see him going there. Who knows? He could be the replacement immediately after Rangnick in Manchester United, and I would love to see that happen. I think it would give him new energy, some sort of fire under his ass a little bit. That would be my ideal move. I do want Rodgers at Manchester United. I think he would be really good. He's got a proven record for himself, and I think the players would really give him the respect that he deserves. Unlike what they're doing currently to Rangnick, where they question his tactics and everything else. But other than that, I think if he was to go anywhere else outside of the Premier League, I think he could actually go to Atletico, because there's rumors of Diego Simeone's career being done at Atletico.
That would be an interesting one for sure.
So I could see a three-way kind of change happening where we see Diego Simeone coming to Manchester United, and then Rodgers head over to Atletico, and who knows? We could see Mauricio Pochettino return to the English Premier League, but not to a top 6 team. We could see him come to rebuild the team and kind of give himself a new energy.
I don't know. Well, there's also rumors that if Tottenham doesn't give the transfers that Antonio Conte wants, he's going to walk.
Yeah, I mean, we could see the return of Mauricio Pochettino to Tottenham, the return of the special one to Tottenham. So,
I don't
but
think.
I will say,
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just don't see him staying at PSG after this year.
no. I mean, there's heavy rumors already linking Zinedine Zidane to PSG, and those rumors have not wavered off for as much as some people say, that the rumors were fake. That never happened or anything like that. Like, that's just fine margins at that point when you're trying to shut down a rumor that is still very much relevant up to this point and very much alive. So I think we do see Zinedine Zidane take over PSG in an effort to kind of keep Kylian Mbappe in the team, because Kylian Mbappe and Zinedine Zidane have always wanted to be together in the same team and go from there. However, for me to see Antonio Conte leave Tottenham, I think there needs to be far more variables than just a January transfer window, because he's managed to turn this team around rather quickly with what he's working on. He likes the culture that's there. He likes the players that he's working with. He likes what the organization's mindset is, and he likes that they're letting him do his own thing. So I think a series of variables will have to be there. I think if they're to let go of players like Dele Alli and a couple others and not have fine replacements that he can have his hands on, that could be something that would tick him off and be like, all right, I'm out of here. Like, I don't need to waste my time here. Or unless they just randomly and out of nowhere, they're just like, yeah, no, thanks for this year, but we're going on a different direction. Which I don't see that happening, because Daniel Levy right now is under some serious pressure to allow Conte to do his thing. So, but other than that, any final thoughts, Chris, before we wrap up the episode?
Not really.
All right. Well, with that said, signing off of Yellow Card episode 67. It's your host, Diego Galvis, Chris Jones. Make sure to head over to Couch Guy Sports Network. Check them out. Check out Shocked Energy if you ever feel low of energy and just need that energy boost. Use the code CGSN, as in Couch Guy Sports Network. Or if you're like me and you're just staying home this weekend, just relaxing, laying on the couch, and you just want a nice little pulsating massage, head over to Exogun and use the code CGS10 for 10% off if you order today and get that shipped to you ASAP. Thank you all so much for tuning in. See you all guys next week. Make sure to follow the Yellow Card Podcast on Twitter @PodcastCard.